are going to lead the rest of the hearing. Proceed, Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. This committee has oversight responsibility over the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Department of Homeland Security. We have a constitutional duty to hold these agencies accountable with public hearings. By this date, in my first year as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, we had already held 2 major oversight hearings with Biden administration agency heads, including one with the FBI Director Wray on domestic terrorism threats. So far this year, the Republican majority in this committee has not held a single oversight hearing, despite numerous critical challenges facing the nation that are under our jurisdiction. In the last week alone, several events have demanded this committee's immediate attention. The horrific assassination in Minnesota, the treatment of our colleague Senator Padilla by federal agents in Los Angeles, and President Trump's unprecedented deployment of the U.S. military in Los Angeles. We should hear without delay from Attorney General Bondi and FBI Director Patel about what they are doing to address the unacceptable political violence in our country, including threats to Article III judges and justices, as well as members of Congress. And we need to hear from the Homeland Security Secretary Noem about the treatment of our colleague, Senator Padilla, and this administration's mass deportation campaign against immigrants. But instead of exercising this constitutional oversight duty, my Republican colleagues are holding this hearing. Apparently, armchair diagnosing former President Biden is more important than the issues of grave concern which I have mentioned. To take a few examples of the issues this committee should be addressing, the Trump administration has removed dozens of senior career prosecutors and FBI officials with decades of national security expertise, leaving our nation more vulnerable to terrorism and other national security threats. This should be explained to this committee. The Justice Department has diverted hundreds of law enforcement agents away from combating cartels, drug trafficking, and gun violence to participate in President Trump's mass deportation campaign. This should be addressed in an open hearing of this committee. The Justice Department is also turning a blind eye to corruption. The administration has gutted the Department of Justice's Public Integrity Session, which oversees political corruption, just as the president's shameful crypto scheme unfolds. And the administration has removed Department of Justice career ethics officials and shut down the office charged with investigating misconduct by DOJ attorneys. With these internal checks gone and this committee asleep at the wheel, it's no surprise that Attorney General Bondi signed off on President Trump to accept Qatar's gift of a $400 million luxury airliner, despite the fact that the Attorney General was previously a registered foreign agent for the Qatari government. We are still waiting for her official finding on this gift transfer. And it's no surprise that Department of Justice official Emil Bove tried to strike a corrupt bargain with New York Mayor Eric Adams, dropping public corruption charges in exchange for the mayor's cooperation with Trump agenda mass deportations. When it comes to these historic, compelling issues, the GOP majority tells America to move along. Nothing to see here. Let's revisit this administration of a previous president in this hearing. Let's revisit a 20-year-old precedent on the use of an auto pen. And I know my Republican colleagues are eager to discuss President Biden's pardons. But why are they ignoring the actual pardon crisis that's taking place right now? President Trump's pay-to-play scheme. Last month, President Trump pardoned Paul Walzak, who pleaded guilty in 2024 to withholding over $7 million of taxes from his employees' paychecks and failing to pay them to the Internal Revenue Service. What warranted Mr. Walzak's swift pardon by President Trump? His pardon application explicitly cited millions of dollars his mother raised for President Trump's campaigns and other efforts to support the president. But that was not enough. It was 3 weeks after Mr. Walczak's mother attended a $1 million a person Trump fundraiser in April of this year that Mr. Walczak was miraculously receiving his pardon. And now he no longer must pay $4.4 million to the taxpayers of this country. That's one example of the many pardons granted to President Trump's wealthy donors and political supporters. Of course, these pay-to-play pardons are in addition to more than 1,500 January 6 rioters who received blanket pardon from President Trump, including 169 who violently assaulted law enforcement officials. And we're going to make a question of cognitive ability. I think we should consider what happened in Alberta, Canada, just this week, where President Trump was at a press conference with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and said the following: "You all know the great PM of the UK, and we just signed a document." President Trump continued, "We just signed it so we have our trade agreement with the EU. Britain has not been a party to the EU for 5 years, but President Trump made a statement which clearly was wrong." Now I'd like you to see a short video that includes some other examples of cognitive ability.
Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as
I
president?
don't know. The windmills are driving the whales crazy, obviously. I have concepts of a plan. They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the... I know about magnets is this. Give me a glass of water. Let me drop it on the magnets. That's the end of the magnet. The kidney has a very special place in the heart. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? This is a tough hurricane, one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. When you ran out the healthy arms, you ran out of really healthy. They had great arms, but they ran out. It's called sports. It's called baseball in particular. Can't understand a word he's saying. Did you just see Maduro, Venezuela? It's unbelievable. Well, I don't know about it. I mean, obviously, I'm not involved.
He wants to know why the proclamation was signed in the dark.
I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it.
Do any of these statements raise a question of cognitive ability? You be the judge. If my colleagues are truly interested in issues of presidential succession and disability under the 25th Amendment, I would suggest they embark on this constitutional journey with a proposed amendment, not today's political adventure. I yield.
Consequences on our nation, consequences that touched every aspect of American life. On border policy, our nation's borders were handed over to the radical left-wing element of the administration, throwing open our borders to 15 million illegal aliens, an unprecedented immigration crisis that pulled our nation into chaos. On foreign policy, haphazard and reckless decisions placed our warfighters in jeopardy, escalated conflicts around the globe, and led to a catastrophic humiliation on the world stage that claimed the lives of 13 American soldiers, including one Missourian, during the disastrous withdrawal from Kabul. On the economy, rampant inflation drove up the cost of life's essentials, making them unaffordable to countless hardworking families. In the realm of culture, the regime censored free speech, closed down churches, targeted traditional Catholics and parents at school board meetings, and let an unelected class of left-wing radicals degrade, attack, and lie about our history and our heritage. A poisonous anti-Western, anti-American ideology that had once been confined to elite university classrooms suddenly became the official White House policy. All of this was done not in isolation. It was sustained, defended, and covered for by an alliance of elite institutions, from the media to the so-called expert class to big tech to the federal bureaucracy itself. When we speak of collusion among elites, or the so-called deep state, we're accused of being conspiracy theorists. But this was no theory. It was plain and overt, out in the open for everyone to see. For 4 years, we had a president who could barely string together coherent sentences after 6 p.m. Yet, this glaring fact went unreported, undiscussed, and unaddressed. Why? Because the Democrat Party, corporate media, federal bureaucracy, and big tech companies collaborated to conceal the truth from the American people, not out of ignorance, but because it advanced their own interests. In the absence of a functioning president, chaos took hold. An empty vessel occupying the Oval Office becomes a puppet for those surrounding him. Many elected officials, including some in this chamber, have used auto pens, a mechanical device that replicates a signature. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, so long as we are the ones actually making the decisions. But under President Biden, the auto pen became a troubling symbol, a symbol of an absentee president and an executive branch directed by nameless, faceless aides that no one outside of Washington, D.C. had ever heard of and no one ever voted for. It was the auto pen presidency, a government run by committee rather than a leader chosen by the American people. By contrast, love him or hate him, we all know President Trump is in command of his presidency, and he is the one calling the shots. It is plain as day that President Trump is actively making the decisions, whether announced via Truth Social or signature. Under President Biden, that transparency and certainty evaporated. We cannot confidently say that the decisions bearing his signature were the will of the president or his Politburo. That goes doubly for his social media posts, including his decision to drop out of the 2024 presidential election. We did not know if it was his decision or posted on his behalf after a palace coup because President Biden was mentally unfit to serve. The corporate media played an indispensable role in this cover-up, systematically suppressing discussion of President Biden's condition. As we will demonstrate in the video evidence presented today, dissenting voices were silenced, and the truth was buried. It was not a passive oversight. It was deliberate. It was a deliberate campaign to shield a narrative that protected the interests of the most powerful. Even members of this very committee, some of whom served alongside then Senator Biden when he chaired this very committee, defended his mental acuity for years. Now Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson offer a convenient narrative to absolve everyone involved. The media lacked access, the family was overtly protective, the cabinet was incompetent, and Robert Hur said the president was merely a well-meaning man in aviators who liked ice cream. It is the tired, evasive refrain of the politician caught in a lie. Mistakes were made. Yes, mistakes were made, and every participant in the cover-up, from the media to the cabinet, is jointly and severally liable for what may very well be the greatest deception in our nation's history. Even their apologies today are framed in a way that absolve them from responsibility for this crime against the American people. They apologize for having missed the story. They didn't miss anything. They actively chose to ignore or run cover for the people in power. The Biden cabinet rarely met, and some members, like former Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, deliberately distanced themselves from the president to maintain plausible deniability. Even members of this committee were part of the Great Deception. The Monday after Biden announced he would not seek re-election, one member called the idea of invoking the 25th Amendment outrageous, insisting the debate performance does not reflect who he is or his capacity to govern as President of the United States. Another member repeatedly vouched for Biden's fitness, declaring, Joe Biden is fit, capable, and ready to serve another term. And later, this is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on. Yet another, during the 2020 Democrat presidential primary, alluded to Biden's decline, but quickly retracted his remarks when it became politically expedient. After the debate, yet another member praised Biden's strong delivery of remarks to NATO as evidence of his capacity to lead. The purpose of this hearing is not to interrogate Biden officials or partisan reporters, though they should be held accountable. Instead, our focus is to identify and rectify the systemic weaknesses that allowed this situation to fester unchecked. Our distinguished witnesses, experts in White House transparency, operational procedures, and executive power will assist us in diagnosing these flaws. While the House and Senate pursue fact-finding missions to hold these responsible to account, our mission here is to chart a path forward. We cannot allow another weekend at Biden's presidency with its glaring national security vulnerabilities papered over by an autopen. The DC establishment might argue that the governance of a shadowy, unelected figures is a legitimate substitution for a functioning president. It is not. The American people cast their vote for a president, not a faceless apparatus. Article 2 of the Constitution vests immense authority in the President of the United States, a single individual. With that extraordinary power comes equally profound responsibility. At the Constitutional Convention, our founding fathers debated giving the President the title of Defender of the Rights of the American People. The security and well-being of the American people and their rights must take precedent over personal ambition. It is often said that power corrupts. I believe that power reveals. Over the past 4 years, this cover-up laid bare a disturbing reality. The left and the corporate media place their pursuit of power above the welfare of your families and your country. They dismissed your observations, urging you to not to trust your own eyes. We have a solemn duty to call this what it is, an abdication of constitutional duty. As was stated in Federalist 51, ambition must check ambition. If a president is mentally unfit to serve, we need a dependable mechanism to, at the very least, ensure that the truth reaches the American people. I look forward to the insights this hearing will yield and from our expert witnesses and the discussion that will follow. The public is counting on us to ensure this never happens again, because we won't always be fortunate enough to have a leader like President Trump who is so unmistakably in command. Senator Welch.